It was 1988 and the horror genre was bringing out the weird. Genre fans are entertained by the cult-inspired slasher flick Bad Dreams. The Blob remake proved to be super fun and blobby. Frank Henenlotter offered a little body horror with brain damage. Oh, I love that flick. And we must not forget Hollywood chainsaw hookers. Or should we? I'll leave that to you. However, 1988 also saw the beginning of Chucky with Tom Holland's directorial effort, Child's Play. If you were still longing for a franchise, you had plenty with Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood, and A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. It was also an impactful year with a presidential election that saw George H.W. Bush defeat Michael Dukakis in the presidential race. The Soviet Union started its economic reconstruction, and the Los Angeles Dodgers won 4-1 in the World Series. Things were changing as the decade was coming to a close. Outside the spooks, we also saw the release of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and the Academy showed 1987's The Last Emperor a little love, awarding it Best Picture, amongst many other wins, at that year's Oscar ceremony. And while the 80s embraced horror comedy quite often, we were in for a massive treat with the release of something new from filmmaker Tim Burton. Funnily enough, it didn't surprise some of the director's fans simply because of the legend of Large Marge. 1985's classic comedy Pee-wee's Big Adventure is very different from the pinnacle of great horror movies of that decade. It is, however, a hilariously fun comedy. Yet one needs help getting the image of the mysterious trucker who picks up a hitchhiking Pee-wee. Large Marge is more than just a spooky ghost story. It's one of the most memorable in movie history. And are you ready to hear yet another ghost story? You know the ghost with the most?
Don't even say his name.
Just say his name 3 times. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. And secure your copy of the Handbook for the Recently Deceased today on our 80s Horror Memories.
Beetlejuice is Michael Keaton doing something that is very Michael Keaton-esque, but at the time, right? But something else entirely. You know, there's something. It's a great ghost story, and obviously it's also about the bureaucracy of being a ghost, and you know it showed. More than Pee-wee's Big Adventure, you know, the promise of what Tim Burton was going to be. And I think that's one of the landmark things about it. You could see something, you know, this was being made by a filmmaker who was going to be unlike anybody else.
Beetlejuice was a refreshing change of pace when it came to the genre. Upon its release, the film earned critical praise and made a solid profit. Hell, it even earned an Academy Award for Best Makeup. The success Burton had with Pee-wee's Big Adventure gave him the freedom to make something impressively strange. And boy, was it strange. However, it would have been a much darker story had the original script kept in the detailed death of the feature's leading couple, Barbara and Adam Maitland, wonderfully portrayed by Alec Baldwin and Geena Davis. Thankfully, the balance of comedy and goofy horror in the finished project delighted fans. And it's not a surprise, it all works. The casting is pitch perfect. Baldwin and Davis are an incredibly likable and charming couple that faces their untimely demise. The family that moves into the Maitlands' home lends an impressive amount of cred, especially the brilliant work from Catherine O'Hara. Yet similar to the terrific leads, Winona Ryder is beyond charming as Lydia. It was an early indication that the actress would become a staple in teen flicks from that era. She gave the troubled young teen depth, humor, and heart. It's no wonder so many movie fans developed a crush on Lydia Deetz. Burton also added a few intriguing names that stand out in this inventive flick. You have the legendary Sylvia Sidney as Juno, the afterlife caseworker. Her sequence with a recently deceased football team is freaking hilarious. Other intriguing casting choices include singer Robert Goulet and the famous host with the most, Dick Cavett, who brings himself to Connecticut at the promise of the Dietzes living in a haunted house. And if you want bizarre, you can't get much better than Glenn Shaddix as Otho, easily one of the most memorable performances in a film that has many. Stop-motion animation within Beetlejuice's realm is still impressive by today's standards. It's such a gorgeous film with the fanciful set design, and the opening shot that feels damn near Capra-esque, until it's not. The originality of the creatures and makeup effects still resonates to this day. It could be the almost goofy nature of the visuals, but I can't imagine what this would have looked like with excessive CGI and the like. Hopefully, Burton will remain true to his original classic with the upcoming sequel. It's well worth creating a similar visual style in the next chapter. Watching the film today still feels just as engaging and entertaining as it did back then. It may get some heat for some of the more off-color jokes. What? Yes, it's that kind of world, but it still works on just about every level. The fantastic script gives us great characters, easily quotable dialogue,
nice fucking model!
a sense of manic mayhem, and tons of fun. Here is where I question whether the upcoming Beetlejuice sequel can light a candle to this classic flick. The problem with legacy sequels is they feel like they're missing the passion and soul. All too often, they just feel like a simple cash grab. Here's hoping Burton and company will stay true to the original's energy and heart.
Michael Keaton, also Dougie's favorite, he brought comedy to it, right? So there's scares, there's non-human things going on, and there's funny. And so every time Beetlejuice showed up on film, it's like, oh, here he is again. You know, I couldn't wait to see and hear what silliness he was going to come up with. And bigger, broader characters are always work with me.
Now I gotta tell you guys, I freaking love Beetlejuice. Getting me in the theater to see this was much too easy. First off, Michael Keaton is and has always been one of my favorite comedic actors. He's freaking great in general.
She touched my peppy, Steve.
I first noticed him in the excellent comedy Night Shift. The 1982 feature starring Shelley Long and Henry Winkler allowed Keaton to steal the show. His comedic timing was impeccable. And yes, this is still one of my favorite films from director Ron Howard. Yeah, he directed that. And frankly, I was excited to see the man take on a little bit of the odd with this offbeat character that he would make iconic. Keaton's Beetlejuice is offensive, intrusive, and comedically vicious. As a bioexorcist who deviously likes to clean houses of the living, the actor excelled in every aspect of the character. Yet this is one of those special occasions where the filmmaker himself was just as famous as the performers on screen. Tim Burton had proven himself with the brilliant short Frankenweenie and the previously mentioned Pee-wee's Big Adventure. The filmmaker was off to an ambitiously original start after crafting a series of short films that featured shades of what was to come. Burton proved worth celebrating with his goth-centric stories and quirky characters with a heavy dose of stop-motion animation. Yet that was only part of what made the gloriously ghoulish Beetlejuice special. As a teenager, I was in love with all things spooky. At the same time, my appreciation for horror comedy wasn't nearly as deep as my absolute adoration of slasher villains like Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees. Unfortunately, I was picky about the guffaws from some of the more generic takes on the subgenre. However, this young movie fan who found solace in Keaton's hilarity and my appreciation for Burton's style excited me enough to experience the 1988 feature, and boy was I in for a treat. This flick was Large Marge on steroids. Can you tell that I have a deep love for that ghostly trucker? Oh, Marge. The first time I watched this classic tale, I fell instantly in love with Lydia Dietz. As an awkward teenager, Winona Ryder became my go-to young movie star. The actress made more than just a little impression. I still quote many of the lines from this film, but growing up, I always connected the most with "My whole life is a dark room." What teenager didn't feel that same way at some point? Her work in this film made me an instant fan. And who wasn't at that time? Heathers, Mermaids, Welcome Home, Roxy Carmichael, and of course Tim Burton's lovely fairy tale Edward Scissorhands. Winona captured teen angst better than anybody at the time, and she still freaking rocks. Adam and Barbara Maitland are a lovely couple living happily in their nice Connecticut home. Yet the couple find themselves facing their demise thanks to a tragic accident on a bridge. Not quite aware of what happened, they return to their humble abode. Yet things are very different. When they discover a book entitled Handbook for the Recently Deceased, they begin to understand their unusual situation. They unfortunately did not make it out of the accident.
It does make you wonder, like, what if the world outside changed dramatically? And if the pandemic taught us anything, it's like that, things can happen in the world that make us like, okay, let's stay in the safety of our own house and see what happens now. How do we navigate this now?
When a new family arrives, the sweet Adam and Barbara have trouble trying to frighten the new residents. Considering they are such charming ghosts, why do they want to scare them? It takes only a few minutes to realize how frustrating Delia Dietz is, an abomination of pretension. And that's not including her freakishly odd sculptures, which she holds dear to her icy cold heart. So what's a couple of ghosts to do? After a less than promising meeting with caseworker Juno, the couple is told to figure out themselves if they want the family removed. Considering these two are so damn nice, it's a bit of a task. However, they discover some help in the form of Beetlejuice. Even though Juno warns them not to conjure this bothersome ghost, they become desperate for help.
What did Barbara say?
They discover that they're out of their league after a calypso gone wrong dinner party. And yes, it's one of the most charming moments of the film, one that is absolutely unforgettable. The brilliant Catherine O'Hara dancing and lip-syncing to Harry Belafonte's Deo. If that's not enough, the rest of the guests chime in, offering a little support. So what's a ghost to do if they can't scare anybody? Well, you can call on a bioexorcist. He's a people exterminator. While Barbara gives in and says Beetlejuice 3 times, she soon realizes that it may not be the best call. When Beetlejuice creates a frightful situation, he also goes after Lydia. Since Barbara and Adam have taken a liking to the young girl, they become very protective. Unfortunately for the ghostly couple, the menace is not even close to effortless to get rid of. The fast-paced hour-and-a-half feature moves so quickly that you're sure to have a massive smile plastered on by the time the credits roll. As crude and rude as Beetlejuice is, Keaton brings this guy to life in the best of ways. As great as he had already proven to be, this performance is unforgettable on every level. The film and its performances are still held in high esteem today, so much so that we are getting a highly anticipated sequel nearly 4 decades later, and the cast is really damn impressive. Not only will we see the return of Catherine O'Hara and Winona Ryder, Mr. Keaton is back to reprise the title role. Then, as for newcomers, Jenna Ortega, Willem Dafoe, Monica Bellucci, and Bern Gorman all play a part in Burton's new vision. Let's just hope it's practical. Watching Beetlejuice again after a few years, I'm happy to report that the film still holds up splendidly. I was fully gushing over how fresh and entertaining it remains. Unsurprisingly, the characters have appeared in comics, animated shows, and so much more. One of my favorite places here in Los Angeles is Universal Studios, and one treat is to see the Beetlejuice yucking it up with amusement park guests. I've taken several pics with the dude, and it's always fun to see how much they put into the character. Clearly, it's not Michael Keaton himself, but my love for this movie knows no bounds. As a fan of Burton's work, this is easily one of his best films. However, I do still have a massive love for Ed Wood as well. His exaggerated sets and characters still bring me a heaping helping of macabre movie magic. Beetlejuice is a film worth celebrating. It plays well on Halloween, but like many of Burton's features, it's a fun-filled fright with a comedic edge. As for the sequel, the idea of seeing Ryder and Keaton and O'Hara return to these incredible roles is just too difficult to resist. Here's hoping Beetlejuice's return will be something worth celebrating. If Beetlejuice is a hit, maybe we'll get a third chapter. Beetlejuice. I mean, come on, you kinda have to, right? How did this classic flick rate with you? Are you all excited to take a new adventure with the rude and crude ghost? Let us know in the comments below, and thanks for watching. Now give this flick another watch. I can guarantee that old and new fans alike will still find themselves enamored with this excellent little treat of a movie.
On the next episode, let's doze off and face once again everyone's favorite melty face bad guy with Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Until next time, poor hounds.
I am eternal.
Hi friends, your humble narrator Tyler Nichols here, and I hope that you enjoyed that episode of 80s Horror Memories. If you missed our previous episode, click over here. If you want to see more from our series, click up here. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing? Subscribe right here. And most importantly, stay spooky, folks.